What's up, everybody? This is Afro Izakaya. It's the first episode, and we're just going to jump right into it. This is going to be a Godzilla episode. We have Kaiju Kent here. If you're a fan of the bar, if you're a barfly and you are a fan of the Blerd bar, you recognize this man. If not, welcome.
They keep asking me back for some reason.
For some reason, he keeps coming, but we can't push him away enough. But no, this is going to be... This is going to be a Godzilla episode. We're going to talk about Godzilla -1. We're going to talk about the franchises.
The dual sort of situation between Legendary and
Toho. And just what we feel about it and where we think it's going. Spoilers. Spoiler warning.
Oh, is this going to be a spoiler?
Oh yeah, no, we're not.
All right.
Let it all hang out. Yeah. Let it all hang out. So Godzilla -1. When you first saw the trailer, what did you think? What did you think going into it? And then tell us about your journey of seeing it.
My first thought when I saw the first trailer. So I followed the development of this movie, like long before we got the trailer. I'm just so I know you know, so they know. Lifelong Godzilla fan. I discovered Godzilla when I was a little kid, like 4 or 5, and I think it was Power Rangers that did it. I loved Power Rangers like everyone when I was little, and my mom went, like, I mean, if you like that, then there's a whole bunch of Japanese movies with the big dinosaur guy. You love dinosaurs. And I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I've been like following Godzilla movies as they come out since I was very small. So before Shin Gojira, which was, I believe, in 2019, there was actually been a huge gap since the last Japanese Toho Godzilla movie. We've had the Legendary Monsterverse going on, but in Japan... the last Godzilla movie for a while was Godzilla Final Wars in 2004. And then that was a point where, box office returns on these movies had been going down a little bit. And then they're like, all right, let's give them a break.
Not for nothing, though. Looking at those graphics, I was like,
Yeah, I mean, I love I don't know if it's nostalgia. I don't know if, there's truth to how I inflate it, but I love the dudes in suits. And there's something charming about it. I don't know.
Sure.
But so, 2004's Final Wars was the last Japanese Godzilla movie for a while. They said, let's hands off it for a while. The rights went to Legendary. They started doing their thing overseas.
So that was one thing I wanted to touch on. I didn't know if Toho... like, it's just licensing it, like letting Legendary, like, all right, like, you can play with it, but, like, don't get too crazy. Or if Legendary was like, we want this.
Well, here's the thing. I think at the time, Toho being fully hands-off didn't really... So...
They had lost faith in their only begotten son? That's wild.
The box office wasn't looking great.
That's wild.
But they were still precious about it to a degree, because after the 1998 Godzilla movie, which is a long story, but long story short, a lot of Japanese fans or fans of the Japanese movies were not pleased with how characters were handled in that, how Godzilla himself was portrayed and designed, and
all the things.
It took a better part of a decade and a half for them to even let a Western studio try again. But once they did, it was like they gave them a list of rules. Like Godzilla has to do this. Godzilla can't do this.
Smart on their part.
Like, you can reinvent parts of the mythology. You can have them do certain things, but there are certain rules you have to follow. And then if you follow those rules, go ahead. But more or less, yeah, they just let... But the thing is, I don't think they believed the Legendary movies would be that popular. I don't think they knew that the Monsterverse would kind of blow up. The first 2014 movie turned a decent profit. And, all of the movies have done at least okay.
That was, I have to say, 2014, as a reintroduction to, like, a beloved character, it was really good. Like
Gareth Edwards, he's done, what did he do? He did Monsters. He did Rogue One. Good director, and it was one of those things where it's like, oh, they got like a real prestigious director to do a Godzilla movie. And
well,
it was,
it was that, but then if you remember the trailers, you had like Bryan Cranston,
Yeah.
right? You had
wish he was in more of the movie.
was it Ken Watanabe? He was in it.
Ken Watanabe was
So like that was like
yeah.
that was a huge name where it's like, oh my goodness, I recognize that name. He's gonna be in this. He's Japanese. It's a Japanese monster. This is gonna be great.
I feel like they were like, but we have to have at least one Japanese.
at least a segue, right?
Yeah. The Aaron Taylor Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah. They had a great cast for that to be like the reboot.
And I think they told a good story, and one thing that I hear people complaining about that movie is there wasn't enough Godzilla in it. But the interesting thing is Gareth Edwards has been on record saying he was going for like a Jaws approach, where he didn't want to show off Godzilla all the time, he wanted to slowly reveal him throughout the movie. And that's obviously not the direction they did for other movies in the MonsterVerse. Like King of the Monsters, he was front and center. But I think, and this is going to tie into the conversation later, Godzilla can be so many things. And you can do so many things with Godzilla. I think there's room for these different approaches. I mean, you have the seriousness of the first film, the 1954 Gojira. That was like a horror movie about nuclear war. It wasn't a fun, silly dinosaur super.
And also, what I found interesting, it was kind of like deforestation, but like for the ocean. Which is very, I find with a lot of the earlier ones, it's very woke. If it were to be like, if you take the same like storyline from those older ones and put them in a newer,
people would be calling it that.
Oh my goodness.
It's almost like things have always been political. It's almost like that's what art is. It's almost like art is just people putting messages to their work to like convey ideas and make you feel things.
That's not this episode, but you're not wrong. But so yeah, no, I think that was very interesting with that. But now -1.
Okay, yeah, let's. Sorry, it's like on this particular topic, I will go.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm here.
-1 was very much a return to what we were just talking about, the spirit of that 1954 film, that serious tone, that very anti-war message, because obviously that was a pervasive message in the first one. Yeah, I mean, something interesting, and I think this maybe partially ties into the title. The title is interesting for a couple reasons, but one thing that a lot of people don't know is there's like, I lost count of the amount of Godzilla movies there are at this. I think there are over 30.
I want to say 35.
They, almost none of them are period pieces set in the past. The films that are set in the 50s, the films that are set in the 50s were made in the 50s. And like in the 60s, so on. Some Godzilla movies are set in the future, which is, I guess, the opposite of a period piece. But, like, this is the first time they actually released a Godzilla film that was set back in the timeline. And I think it's interesting because, like, they went farther back in the timeline than even the first Godzilla movie, which, again, was 54. This movie's set in 47. To me, and I know there's another explanation, but to me, the title -1 almost feels like it's referencing that. It's way past 0. It's going even farther.
Before you, what you even are introduced to, we're going beyond that.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
And yeah, the anti-war themes, right? So like the first Godzilla movie was definitely very anti-nuclear war. That was the concern,
right,
obviously. And this is just more of a general, like, sort of condemnation of like that lack of regard for the value of life.
I was gonna say, I thought it was more, not just a, it was like, we want to do stuff ourselves. We want to be the power. We the people, right? And I think that's so interesting because even in anime that you might watch, or even one of the characters in -1, he's like looking for that honorable, like almost Valhalla like death of like, no, I want to go to war, I want to do this thing, I want to be great, like remember my name kind of a thing. Yeah. And so many people were like, hey, we're tired of we're tired of that being the status quo. Can we survive, but like kill the monster, but also survive?
Yeah, I really liked that. Like they were able to really emphasize like life and not throwing it away in how everyone lived at the end, or everyone who hadn't died yet lived at that point.
Well, I mean, some people got plot armor, but
yeah, some people got plot armor. Well, one person in particular. Quite a lot of plot armor. I mean, there's a spoiler thing.
Yeah.
So the female lead, Noriko.
Wifey.
Yeah, I mean, she's...
Well, not wifey.
Well, not wifey.
Not wifey.
Implied wifey after the movie at that
Sure.
But, yeah. She does survive Godzilla sort of nuking them from like 200 feet away.
We literally see her get blown away.
There is...
Off camera.
Yeah, there is...
Like, she's on camera, and then she gets blown off camera.
She's gone. Yeah.
And then you see the rubble afterwards, and it's like, oh, well, nice to have known you.
Here's the thing. If they made her look more fucked up, I feel like I would have bought it.
But then she's not pretty. She's not like... Which, I mean,
Have you seen... I don't think it's physically possible to call any member of the cast of this film not pretty, even if they were nuked.
Well, I mean, it depends on how you maim them, but like, sure. But I think...
Growing macabre, but... point is, yes, when I saw that part of the film, and it's at the very end of the film, I did wonder, like, she looks weirdly intact for having survived, like,
the devastation, like
a nuclear detonation.
Because
like,
here's
right
the thing,
face.
that was the first time we saw Godzilla's atomic beam in the city.
Yeah.
Like we see it happen in the ocean. It's like, oh snap, that's crazy.
That's the first time we watch him do it.
Yeah.
Because we just sort of see it come up from under the water.
Exactly.
Previously.
So that was wild. Hold on, I don't think we ever.
Do you want to do a brief synopsis? Like I know this is a spoiler thing.
This is a spoiler thing. We never even got to the point of like what you thought of the trailer.
Right.
What did you think of the trailer? Say that, and then we'll get into a synopsis.
So when I saw the trailer, I had been waiting for this movie for a while. In fact, I was waiting for a sequel to Shin Gojira, then I heard that wasn't happening. I was a little bummed, but I moved on. And I was waiting for... I was just curious to see what it would be, because I didn't know. There were rumors that Toho at this point basically wanted to do an MCU. They wanted to create a Godzilla-focused cinematic universe. And technically that hasn't been like debunked yet. This could theoretically start that. But it won't definitely. We'll see what approach they take. But you know, that scuttlebutt in mind, I was just curious to see what it would be. And then I saw that trailer, and I immediately went, this could either be fantastic or it could like be very, very bad. Yeah, it could be. I felt like there was a certain point in the franchise where it was only going to be an extreme. We'd just come off an extremely successful one-off with Shin Gojira, like made a lot of money, great critical acclaim, but it was weird and different. And clearly,
I'm glad you said that. I don't think we have time for me to go into like how weird and different
it was. Very much a Hidetaki Anno, but it was definitely like Evangelion Godzilla. And I think that Shin's weirdness is why they didn't pursue it. It's like, this is better off as a strange one-off. But I saw the trailer, and I was like, this is clearly more conventional Godzilla. This is more along the lines of what he's always been. He seems pretty angry. This probably isn't going to be a big dinosaur superhero movie. This could be either really good. Here's what I was afraid could be the reality. I thought it could be redundant. I thought potentially this would be a movie about just Godzilla attacking the city sometime after World War II. That's it. And then like nothing creative or interesting happens. Like,
what you need.
essentially
for
a
that-
remake of the first movie without bringing anything new to the table. That was my worst fear.
I think what you need for that not to be a thing, which is what they did, is the human element.
Yes.
So before we move on, I will say that when I saw the trailer, it was kind of like when I saw the first Black Panther trailer. I was like, oh, they have my money.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
You were sold immediately.
I know I'm going to see this. I like for it to be the newest installation, for it to be Toho, for it to be set in the past. And I am not a prequel person. I actually do not like prequels. But for this instance, I was like, I am all in. You showed me his skills, like a different way of him charging up his atomic blast.
Yeah, it was neat.
That was like, I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm doing this. When is it? I almost did the super fan pre-release Wednesday night IMAX.
I haven't been to one of those since my friend Kaylin took me to Scott Pilgrim.
Oh wow.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun.
Wow.
So it was a while ago.
So yeah, I was all in. Synopsis of the movie.
Right.
What is it? Like, it's right before World War II, or right before the end, actually.
Yeah, it opens at the final days of World War II.
Yeah.
A kamikaze pilot.
You're like going scene by scene. We're not.
Yeah, but I should describe the main character of the film.
Okay.
Named Koichi Shikishima is his name. And they do this really well without like beating you over the head with all of the specific information. Very clearly, he did not carry out the orders that it is well documented at this point what kamikaze pilots were
supposed
instructed to do at the end of World War II, which was do a suicide run. Yeah.
The shit that he got.
It was
the mindset.
That's a huge thing that I want to talk about. Yeah, so he didn't do it. He didn't, just die with honor purposely in a war that was going to be lost anyway, and that's a major plot point. And as he basically fakes mechanical problems with the ship, he lands on a small island.
That shit was so rude. How the dude, he was like, hey, so, yeah, we noticed you came back here, but, like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your plane. That's interesting, isn't it? He's like, I'm gonna go walk on the beach.
So when he stops off on the island, like feigning mechanical problems just because he doesn't want to die for no reason.
Fair.
Mood.
It's a vibe.
He's on a small island that happens to have a giant dinosaur monster living on it. And
that was Babyzilla.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's unclear how old or developed it was, but that was definitely pre-mutated Godzilla. That was a Godzilla before superpowers.
You think so?
I know so. Godzilla was a monster, a dinosaur, before the nuclear weapons changed him, mutated him like the Incredible Hulk to make him much larger. And
Technically speaking, anime glasses, sure.
We've seen this in other movies. In the Heisei era Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, we do see the dinosaur. I brought me on for this.
I did. This was my own doing.
We saw the Godzillasaurus that he was before. That's what they call it. It's pretty obvious.
Godzillasaurus?
Godzillasaurus. He looks like a T-Rex.
To be fair, I only got up to Invasion of the Astro Monster. If you've been following me on Afro Izakaya on Instagram, I tried to do all of it before going to see Godzilla -1. That didn't happen because there's 30 some odd movies.
I've seen them all.
They're like,
Point is, Godzilla didn't always look like this.
Right.
He was at least more conventional dinosaur first. And this is like the Incredible Hulk. This isn't what he's supposed to look like. He's been mutated by radiation. And
the glow up is real.
Well, he doesn't think so, because generally speaking, that's why he's so pissed and he's always attacking Japan. Because, I
think he's fine with it.
He wasn't fine with it in this movie. He was mad. He was big mad.
Big mad.
But so yeah, Koichi lands on the island, doesn't want to die. And unfortunately, that's where they run into Godzilla first time, pre-nuke. That was his first run-in, and he's one of the only 2 survivors, and he ends up getting survivor's guilt over that too.
Koichi is one of the only 2 survivors.
Yeah, because he has a moment of fear where he doesn't use the machine guns on his plane.
Yeah.
And yet more people die. So it's like literally a second instance where he feels like he was a coward.
Sure. Also, I don't know, in that same instance, right? Put yourself in Koichi's shoes. I was like, no, that makes sense.
I wouldn't have done it.
That makes sense. He's like, no. Because the bull told him, he was like, hey, you go out there. We're going to be here. You go out there, shoot the plane gun at the dinosaur. The dinosaur.
Yeah.
Check that sentence. You go in your plane and shoot the gun at the dinosaur.
And but I think that's the point of the whole thing. Is like Koichi has all of these moments throughout the film where he feels like he's a coward, where he feels like he's failing everyone by not being willing to die for no reason. But he's right. It's the cultural value of die, even if it doesn't make sense. Right. That's wrong.
I was gonna say it was a very beautiful showcase of the mindset in that era and what you were expected to do.
Yeah. And a beautiful rejection of it by the end, when everyone agrees. Yeah, the way this value that we've all as a society held is awful.
Hey guys.
And destructive and like death-seeking.
Let's put a pin in that.
This way.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's great.
So he doesn't do that. He goes on to live with his life. He comes back. He meets a lady in the marketplace, a thief. She has a baby, not her baby. She got that baby through someone who's dying.
Yeah. Well, Tokyo's been firebombed by the United States.
Right.
In the days of World War II.
As they do sometimes.
As happened, yeah.
Hashtag Philadelphia.
Yeah. What? I didn't do it. I mean, but yeah. So Tokyo was firebombed. He comes back. His parents are dead. Pretty much, like most people he knew, is dead. His neighbor's real mad because he didn't kamikaze himself. She was one of my favorite characters in the movie too.
She was wild. That first scene, that introduction scene of her, I was like, oh, I hate you, but like you're killing it right now.
Let me geek out about good writing real quick.
Dude.
Because that's the only scene where the character Sumiko talks about her feelings. She's kind of a side character, but she's there for a lot of the movie. That's the only part of the movie where she talks about her feelings, and she's, her whole family's dead. She thinks Koichi's a piece of shit because he didn't kamikaze himself. He's like, it would have been better if you died doing your job. And she's bitter and mean to him. And throughout the rest of the movie, she becomes like a member of their family, basically. She does a whole 180.
Kind of by the next, not the next scene, I would say 2 to 3 scenes later. Yeah. She is like, all right, well.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, like, in a lot of movies, what, like, less skilled writers would do would have her talk about how she's changing her feelings throughout the whole movie. She's like, oh, maybe I was a little bit wrong, but, I still have these opinions, but I'll do whatever. And then by the end of the movie, she would give a whole big speech about, like, how, much Koichi mattered. But, like, they managed to convey an entire character arc to a character that talked about her feelings literally once at the very beginning of the movie, and you just let her actions speak for it and didn't insult the intelligence of the audience, and it just spoke volumes. It's just good writing. I like shit like that. I like well-written stories that let the actions of the characters and their behavior, like, tell you how they feel without them having to
beat it over your head.
How they feel.
Because, not for nothing, the older Godzilla movies, I feel like their message was kind of written out, spoken about, which is fine. It was a time, it was a place. But this was good. And it still had those vibes of old Godzilla movies. They had the music, which is, if you've been watching it, as I was
delighted when they brought in the Akira Ifukube score. Yeah, the classic theme to the first movie. Yeah, I was excited.
Yeah.
I would have been like slightly more excited if there wasn't a human character in a Godzilla movie that I cared about in mortal danger, And like it was like,
Is it even a Godzilla movie if that's...
well, see, here's the
not
thing.
happening?
Most of the time, the human characters in these movies, they can be good, but they can not be, and it kind of becomes an experience that, part of the experience that you're there for Godzilla. You're there for the monsters a lot of the time.
Yes, but I will push back on that in saying that the originals, Toho originals, make you care about the characters a lot more than Legendary.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that.
Okay.
This has been a long-running thing throughout the entire 70-year history of this thing. This isn't a recent criticism. There's been a lot of talk that it's the monsters that you're there for, you know. It's sometimes you can't always glob. There are exceptions. There are definitely exceptions, but like as a rule, people tend to more remember the monsters than the humans in these movies. But in this movie, when the human characters were in danger, I was upset and I wanted them to be okay. And it was cool. They had the classic Akira Ifukube score from the original 1954 Gojira. And it's a cool scene. But Noriko was dangling out of a train that was dangling from Godzilla's mouth.
Hey, man.
And I had anxiety.
She goes
and
to CrossFit.
I was like, okay.
She goes to CrossFit.
Okay. She's grip strength. Like,
Hey.
I was like, hey, cool, Godzilla, this is fun moment.
She works out. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
I was like, hey, this is a cool, fun moment from the first movie. Can you put her down now, please?
So that was really cool because remembering the first movie and the train scene
is iconic.
it was so like, oh, snap. So I'm just going to fast forward.
Sure, yeah, we can skip a bunch of things. There's a
Because
lot of human drama, and then the Godzilla
and it was
starts
great.
showing
It was
up and
great.
messing things
Watch
up.
the movie. When the doc...
I loved him. He was great.
First of all, before we get into it, this is one of the first, if not only, but like this is one of the, another example of a live action movie that could have been an anime.
Yeah, it could have been.
Like the way that the characters portrayed themselves, I was like, that's very anime-esque of you, but I'm also buying it here in this live action film.
The director's done anime movies.
Oh.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
You know, the interesting thing about him is he's directed and written and stuff, but he actually comes from originally a purely VFX background, which is, it's wild that he started purely in VFX, and it's like, okay, this movie was always going to look good, but he wrote and directed such a beautiful, compelling story. So
Yeah.
it's like,
It was really good.
yeah.
But that being aside, so the doctor, when he talks about how he's going to sink Godzilla,
That was cool, yeah.
I thought it was going to be this is when I thought I was like, oh snap, they're redoing it.
They're doing the oxygen destroyer.
I thought they were doing the oxygen destroyer at first.
I'll tell you why I'm glad they didn't. Because I'm glad they didn't. Because the oxygen destroyer, for those who don't know, was the MacGuffin in the first Godzilla movie.
It was some wild science.
It was sci-fi science.
It was some
fantasy
wild science.
It was a weapon that all right, it's called the oxygen destroyer. What would you think it does? If you guessed anything other than turn you into a skeleton, you're wrong, because that's what it did. It turned things into skeletons.
That's exactly what it did.
So it was the sci-fi
Because it removed
weapon.
the oxygen.
Yeah,
And when you
rendering a
remove the
skeleton,
oxygen,
you know,
everything just...
human beings are just bones and oxygen.
Think of space.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense to me. So it was a sci-fi solution to a sci-fi problem. It was a fiction weapon to fight a giant monster. The fact that they used more realistic science to try and fight Godzilla made it feel more desperate.
I loved it. When I said this in the theater, I was like, I was saying this to my wife, I was like, the first part, I don't get. But the second part about giving him the bends, I was like, all right, that makes some sense. That makes some sense.
But I love that, because it's like, okay, if you have sci-fi magic bullshit on your side and sci-fi magic bullshit in the form of a giant monster on the other side, then it's like, okay, it's like two wizards fighting. It's magic. Anything
Why
can
are we
happen.
even
You
here?
can win, sure.
Sure.
But if you have a wizard and just a guy with a stick. It feels more desperate. And that realism, the real science they had to use to fight the fantasy problem that was the giant monster, made it feel a lot more desperate. It made it feel scary. You had to play by the rules of science and physics, while Godzilla's breaking every law of nature known to man. It's not a fair fight, and it's much scarier that way. And that's why I think it was actually better than the Oxygen Destroyer.
I don't disagree. I wholeheartedly agree. The Wolverine regeneration.
That's actually been a canon thing for a long time. They just don't usually show it.
They definitely don't show it in the first, I will say, 5 movies.
Yeah.
Out of 30,
I don't know if they specifically mention he has... They mention he has a healing factor for the end of the Showa era, but like, it was a plot point in Godzilla 2000, which came out in 1999, misleading title. It was given a name. It was called Regenerator G1. Basically, he's Wolverine healing.
Yeah.
I feel like the reason they didn't more often show it in film had to do with the fact that it was dudes in suits, and they would have to damage the suits in order to show that happen. But he has canonically had a healing factor for a while.
We have the technology.
This isn't even
the power.
The end credit scene where he's starting to regenerate from pulsating tissue isn't even the first time they've done that.
Oh no.
He was implied to regrow from a heart in the final scene of Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack. So it's not even unprecedented that he could grow back from like
just
Deadpool
one
levels of shreds.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool though because one, we see it when he eats a bomb.
Yeah, eats a mine. Yeah.
A mine, and he just like regenerates. I was like, oh snap, this is kind of different. But what was even cooler was when we saw him do his atomic blast, and he had to regenerate from that.
Yeah, it's like it was hurting him to use it. That was cool.
But he was kind of fine with it. Like the way he stood there and like regenerated, he was like, no, I'm gonna take this because
you deserve it.
Yeah,
hurts me, it hurts you worse.
Yeah. So I thought that was like really cool. That
was cool.
And I think that is a interesting point that they could grow on as we go into the next thing of like where is this going? Because what happens is I think we just talked about it where they blow him up, they win.
Did you notice?
But
in the scene where he eats the landmine and they blew up his face a little bit, he kept kind of like a discolored scar for the rest of the movie, like right under his eye.
Oh, did he?
It's subtle, but like it's just not quite the same color as the rest of his face for the rest of the film.
It's literally one of those things. This was a movie that, whether it be on HBO Max or wherever it ends up, I will probably end up rewatching because I very much enjoyed it. Actually,
sorry, but go on.
There was legit a moment in the movie theater, I think it was during the regeneration, where like I had the phantom, muscle memory of like pausing my TV. And I was like, I'm not home and that's okay, but I will be home at some point.
It will be.
So yeah. But yeah, no, I think that there is so much that you could do for that. Doctor. I think they're
Dr. Fudo.
They are at a point where, what were we saying? So he died. He gets regenerated. The pilot comes in because Godzilla's about to murk everybody.
Right. They've successfully enacted their plan to crush him with pressure. Didn't quite work.
He gave him the bends.
Still didn't quite work, but it was clearly hurting him.
It was hurting him, but he was like, "Nah, y'all gonna get this last. You're gonna get this last talk." And the kamikaze pilot comes in, blows off the top of his head, but he gets a parachute because an ejection seat, because that's a thing now. And then he regenerates. That's the movie. Sorry. But the Doctor, he is who could be the person who creates Jet Jaguar.
Of course, we find a way to go back to Jet Jaguar. You are fixated on that.
I'm just saying.
You're not wrong to be.
I'm just saying. He brought in. Look, he brought in. First of all, he's
There's
the Doctor.
So many other robots, but Jet Jaguar is
No. He always Jet Jaguar.
Jet Jaguar.
Because he introduced even the plane that the pilot was using. I was like, oh, you know people in high places?
This whole setup, this whole episode was your backdoor pitch to get Jet Jaguar in the sequel. I should have known. I should have known.
But think about it. Think, Mark.
Oh, I'm thinking.
This is how they open that up. It is.
We were just talking about how they used realistic science to fight Godzilla.
I'm not saying
next step is Jet Jaguar.
I'm not saying it's the sequel. I am saying that it might be the trilogy and or beyond.
Okay, so now let's talk about Jet Jaguar real quick.
Okay.
Non-specifically.
Okay.
Jet Jaguar represents that Showa era silliness, from the movies from the 60s and 70s, where Godzilla would do things like slide on his tail to deliver a drop kick.
The Liu Kang.
Yeah, to do Liu Kang bicycle kick, or do like a silly little dance whenever he would like beat Ghidorah's ass.
First of all,
I didn't see any of the moves. I'm just saying it was
First
silly.
of all,
What?
it's just called not a trophy dance, but like it's like a
touchdown
taunt.
dance.
It's like a
Yeah.
touchdown dance.
Yeah, it was
That's
a touchdown
fine.
celebration when he beat
Yeah.
Ghidorah's ass.
Exactly. Don't judge that man.
It was a different time, but here's the thing. I like that time. I think the silliness of the old Godzilla movies is completely valid. This is what I'm talking about. Godzilla isn't just one thing. Godzilla is 70 years of history. It's like saying Batman's one thing.
Sure.
Adam West Batman is something. Animated series Batman is just as valid.
And then you got Pattinson.
You have Pattinson, just as valid. None of them is more Batman than the other Batman. They're all equally Batman. Batman can be different things. Godzilla's the exact same way. He's a character with 70 years of history. It's all valid. And I know where you're at with this, but that's why I like the Monsterverse and stuff like -1 existing at the same time. I think Godzilla fans who enjoy any flavor of this big radioactive lizard are eating well, because there's so many different things this character can be, and we're getting them all at once. And I think that's beautiful.
I'm gonna stop you there.
All right.
Here's my thing. I think that it had its place in time. Even like the trophy dancing, you know what I mean? He's Wu-Tanging on them hoes. That's fine, but like
Doing 1v1 with Charles Barkley in Nike commercials. Oh, you don't know about the Nike commercial? There's a real Nike commercial where he plays one-on-one with Charles Barkley.
Godzilla plays one-on-one.
Godzilla plays one-on-one with Charles.
Oh, is that where he
Barkley.
dunks?
Charles Barkley dunks on Godzilla. Godzilla
that's
loses the one-on-one against Charles Barkley.
That would never happen.
No, Godzilla is clearly the better basketball player. That's canon.
Stop. Okay, stop. What I was gonna say is, I think that there is a time and place for these things. I think that with the reimagining, you can do Jet Jaguar or any other thing.
How dare you ever imply that silliness is not allowed when you are the #1 Jet Jaguar enthusiast?
I'm just saying you can make it more realistic in a way that they did with Godzilla -1.
You want Jet Jaguar, but serious.
A little bit. Ninja Scroll was my introduction into anime. So there we are.
Ninja Scroll isn't that, Ninja Scroll is adult, but it's also goofy.
That's the point.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't
So you're okay with the big smiley robot that changes sizes as long as he puts his fist through someone's ribcage?
I never said that.
But I'm right.
No, you're not. What I'm saying is, I think there is a space to get Godzilla into a more serious tone, and I think Godzilla -1 is a great starting point for that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that's all that's all it is. But with that being said, how did you enjoy Godzilla -1?
I loved it. Honestly, I hear a lot of people saying like, "Oh, it's the best Godzilla movie," and I feel like there's a huge argument for that. As someone who's been a fan of the series as long as I have, who loves all these movies for different reasons, because again, there's so many different things that they're trying to do. I don't know what I can say my favorite Godzilla movie. It's like I always hated the question, "What's your favorite color?" I'm like, okay, well, what's it on? Like, what's my favorite color to wear? What's my favorite color to paint with? It's like there's different applications for stuff. Well, my favorite Godzilla movie is like, do I want something scary right now? Shin Godzilla -1, the original one. Do I want something where I get to watch Godzilla beat someone's ass real good? Godzilla Final Wars. It's like the only good thing about that movie is he kicks ass throughout the whole thing. He's like that. Godzilla's like John Wick in that movie. He's just killing people for the entire duration. It's great. Do I want something just goofy? I don't know. But Megalon.
What did you think of -1?
Jaguar. -1 was amazing. -1 was a fantastic. It was not only one of the best Godzilla films I've ever seen. It was one of the best films I've seen in like a couple years. Period. It was just a good movie. Like that's the thing. Even if you like don't seek out Godzilla movies, this is just a good movie. It's just a good film. It's well written. It's well acted. It's emotional. It's
1 to 5.
4.9. I don't know. I hate giving out. I hate giving out perfect scores. I feel like you should avoid giving out perfect scores at all costs. But I can't think of like. We already like made some like little nitpicks on it. It's weird that Naoko,
The wife survived.
It's weird that she survived so much intact.
Yeah.
Is that
with what we saw? How we saw her exit the scene and how we see her re-enter? I'm like,
but is that worth knocking off a whole star? If it's 1 to 5, that's 20% of the grade.
Sure.
Is her being like not quite Harvey Two-Faced by the end of the movie worth?
She's not maimed enough.
Worth 20%? No. It's one weird little thing. So 4.9 out of 5. I don't know. 96 out of 100. Just, It's almost perfect. If I wanted to, I could quibble about little shit, but I don't. I think this is the point.
I think that's the huge thing where it's like, how are you judging it? Because it's like when Godzilla was about to wreck everybody after getting the bends, I was like, oh snap. Oh, wait a minute. We haven't seen the pilot. Oh, this is where he comes in. Yep. And it's like, if you're basing it off of those beats that they are obviously making, then it's like, why are you even watching the movie at that point? In my opinion.
Let me put it this way. This movie was everything I wanted it to be and more.
Sure.
It lived up to every expectation I had and surpassed them. And I don't think I could have asked for anything more of this movie. It compelled me with its characters much more than I expected it to. It impressed me with its visual effects. This movie was filmed on a $15 million budget, which is Hollywood pennies. It's like nothing as far as like blockbuster budgets go.
Looking at you, Marvel.
Looking at The Marvels, which was made on like a budget of $250 million, and of course was like doomed to fail, because when a movie's that expensive, it's just...
We're here to talk about Godzilla.
Yeah, it looks great. It's well acted, it's well performed, it's well written, it's just a great story. You don't have to like Godzilla to love this movie, but if you do, good news. It's really good.
Here's the thing. I agree with your 4.9. I think that it was a very great movie. I think that if they decide to jump off with a GCU title pending.
I called it that when I was on the phone with my friend earlier, and it came out of my mouth, and it's like I didn't like the way that tasted.
Yeah, not at all. But they could. They have the space. They have the sandbox set to play in it if they want to. I kind of hope they do, only because segue. At the same time that we were watching this movie, a trailer for Godzilla GXK.
Godzilla X Kong, the new
Empire.
The new Empire. I said the new order. It's like
kind of. That dropped, and I have to say, I feel like they are losing. They're losing it. That's my take with what I'm seeing. Am I going to see it? Yes.
Now,
Yes, I'm going to see it.
Elaborate for me. What are they losing?
I feel like with what I saw in the trailer, and I'm usually not a person who is like, I saw this trailer and this is trash. But what I saw in the trailer, it gave very much Batman v Superman, maybe even worse, because it's like they already tell you that there's going to be a team up. Mm-hmm. We already know.
Yeah, I mean, they fought in the last movie and then
exactly.
So,
and that's why I think they're losing the destructive nature of what Godzilla is. Does Godzilla save the planet from time to time? Sure, but why is that? It's because another monster is stepping in on his turf. Mm-hmm. I feel like this is more, I have to join forces with you to do this thing. Which, sure, he did that with Ghidorah in the first one.
I was going to say, he made it to Invasion of the Astro Monster.
Yes, I made it to there. So, but this feels different. This feels inauthentic. This feels diet. This feels wrong.
So I disagree.
But I am going to see it.
Oh, yeah.
I am going to see it.
So I disagree. Godzilla has a long and storied history of teaming up and, like, being a big lizard superhero. Yeah, the first couple movies were bleak and dark and horror films and movies about a monster. But you can't ignore the part of this character's 70-year history where he transitioned from antagonist
to a protagonist,
to like a neutral force of nature, to an outright hero, where people cheered when they saw him.
Yeah.
And then, you know, he would revert to status quo, and then continuity would shift, and we would do a reboot, and this and that. But
comics happened.
It's a lot like comics. But you can't ignore how much of Godzilla's history he was a big superhero. How much he did team up with other good monsters to fight the bad monsters. You know, how many times the human characters were relieved when Godzilla showed up. The Legendary's Monsterverse has gone that direction with Godzilla, and it's not wrong. It's not invalid. It's not Godzilla.
Hold on. All
right.
It's not wrong. It's not invalid. I agree. My thing is, in this movie, from where we left off in the last movie, I am curious / hesitant on how the writing will make that possible.
I'm curious too, because last time we left off,
Kong,
He won, and Kong pretty clearly.
He was like, you got it. Yeah, I don't want no smoke.
And he left, and he went away. And Godzilla was cool with that. He didn't chase him down. He's like, that works for me. And of course, they had that moment where they teamed up against the larger threat first.
Sure. And now we see he's frozen?
Godzilla sleeps in a lot of weird places, man. No, that shit.
He couch surfs a lot of places.
He sleeps in volcanoes. He sleeps like inside icebergs somehow. Like, how did he get in there?
That's just granddad.
He just shows up out of the weirdest, in the middle of the desert, pop out of the ground. It's like, what were you doing under that?
Or the Egyptian pyramids, apparently.
Yeah, Godzilla just pops out of places. Like,
fair enough.
In like a good.
That's what we're going for.
In a good like 30% of the Japanese Godzilla movies, or in like 2/3 of them, he comes out of the ocean. That's his main thing.
That's his thing.
In that last third, he comes out of some random other place, out of the ground, out of an iceberg, out of like fucking nowhere.
There are no rules. No rules with Godzilla.
It's like it's always like what were you doing in there? Like, did you fall asleep? Like. But yeah, no, him popping out of being in a crystal thing and popping out of a glacier. I'm like, yep, that's just what he does. It's his thing.
What do you think the pink is about?
So,
is it evolution? Is it just I've been sleeping too long and I just got charged? Or like,
as far as this movie,
what is this?
As far as this movie goes, it could be a lot of things. It could be like, so in the MonsterVerse, they've made a big thing about how the Hollow Earth has ambient energy that flows through it, and that's why the monsters are from there, because it's what makes them what they are. It makes them powerful, makes them grow.
Hollow Earth is also the best Deus Ex Machina.
It's like the MacGuffin that keeps giving. Yeah,
that's great.
And so if I were to take a wild guess at why Godzilla is pink in this movie, I think he found some energy source down there and took a nap on it, because he sleeps in weird places.
Sure.
And he ends up...
We've established that here on Afro Izakaya. He sleeps in weird places.
And he gets supercharged from it. He probably does it on purpose, like, because he wants to be stronger for whatever reason. But yeah, I think he gets a supercharge from some energy source in the Hollow Earth. That's my best guess.
That's his answer to Kong's Autobot arm.
Yeah. The gauntlet.
Yeah.
The thing about the particular color scheme, though, because if you notice, he's actually, in certain shots, he looks like he might not just the pink energy, but also be a little greener.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not the first time he's had that exact color scheme. There was a film, Godzilla vs. Megaguirus. I mentioned Godzilla 2000 earlier. This was the next film after that. Awesome. This is the movie that actually came out in 2000. There was like 1 year hits, like Cars, I guess.
Hey.
It's the only movie where Godzilla's noticeably green. Like there's no like tint. It's like, no, that is a green lizard. And he has these pinkish purple crystalline spines. And it's hard not to see the current design for GXK and not go, oh shit, is that? That looks like that.
That's where they're drawing from.
So I think that very likely could be where they're drawing from. The obvious meta-textual reason is new toys. Like,
obviously.
But I think like the inspiration for it is like, I think they pulled something for the already existing history of the character. Mm-hmm. And I think it looks good. I think it looks
Oh yeah, cool. No, I mean it's a weird color scheme. It's a weird color scheme. I like the blue, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, the blue's iconic. I don't know if they're gonna want to keep it pink forever, but for like this, it's cool, interesting.
Sure.
Hey, look, they put it in the trailer, they maybe go like, oh, that's interesting. So like, I guess it worked,
Guess it worked. Do we see Shin Godzilla in this, or because we saw maybe we saw him in the last one, right, with Ghidorah? Well, no, not Shin Godzilla. I'm saying Atomic. How he got Atomic and like started burning Godzilla.
Yeah, burning
Godzilla.
So that's actually what I was wondering, because I thought they could use that as like a recurring thing. Like so far it's been a
why go watermelon pink when you can go burning?
Because if he's burning, he's like exploding all the time and you can never be near him. It sounds great for him, it's bad for every other character. But also maybe it's too powerful. It'd be like having, it's like, how do you beat Godzilla if he's in meltdown form all the time?
You don't gotta be in there all the time. Pero like,
if you could do it on command?
That might be a bit much. I don't know how you can science that away.
It's too strong. Please nerf Godzilla.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know.
Completely unbalanced.
Fair enough.
I think the pink thing is a power-up that's not quite as powerful as the meltdown form, that they could like give him as a cool thing.
It's like
without breaking the game balance.
Sure.
Because the villain in this, Scar King, the big orangutan,
I won't be like you.
Yeah, King Louie.
I won't talk like you.
He's gotta have something up his sleeve. He's gotta have something.
He has a song and dance.
He's got a song and dance.
I won't be like. So.
I'm just saying, they're gonna rip the monkey apart. It's gonna be brutal.
Finishing. Where do you feel like the franchise is going? Let's say Legendary and Toho. Where would you want them to go, and where do you think they're actually going to go?
I have two separate pitches. I have one pitch for the future of the MonsterVerse.
Okay.
I have a pitch for Godzilla -1 and its future.
Wow, MonsterVerse.
Toho. Two separate franchises.
Legendary Toho.
Yeah.
That's wild. I mean, I get it because like this is Legendary.
Yeah,
but
and this is kind of like a chibi version of the Heisei Godzilla.
Definitely.
All right, we'll do Godzilla -1 first.
All
So
right, do it.
Godzilla -1, I think what they could do is they set it in 1947.
Jeto Jaguar. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I might make you happy with this. But we established 1947, farthest back in the timeline that we've ever gone, farther back than the original Godzilla movie. I think the next sequel should be set in 1954, the year the original Godzilla movie came out, and call it Godzilla 0. And that one is something of a partial remake of the 1954 film with certain events recapped, but also Godzilla Raids Again. That's where we could
Introduce other...
start to introduce the idea of other monsters. Godzilla is still mean and bad in this. Like, don't get me wrong. This is not where he pivots into a superhero. Godzilla is still a destructive, angry force of nature. It just turns out there's more of them too, and they don't cooperate. And that's essentially like it. You know, we have Anguirus, you know, and it's on site with them.
On site.
And so, but we could revisit these characters. If we set it in 54, that's only 7 years after 47. All of our cast could return. We could have Koichi. We could have Noriko if she doesn't have terminal radiation poisoning. We could have their daughter Akiko. We can have all of them come back. She'd have to be recast, obviously, as a not
Does she
3-year-old. I mean, if they take their time making the movie, they don't need to recast her. But like, point is, we could revisit that human cast and jump ahead 7 years and do sort of a revisitation celebration of the first 2 Godzilla movies. And then from that point on, keep skipping ahead about a decade at a time. And then
Godzilla wakes up from slumber every like 10 years or so.
yeah, you could even imply he's still active between them. But the point is, we take advantage of the fact that this is our first Godzilla period piece set way back in 1947 and have a series where you have different period pieces in different decades. You have a Godzilla movie set in the 60s and make it about the culture of the 60s. And make it a 60s movie with Godzilla in it. And keep Koichi Shikishima, the main character of -1, as he, you know, gets older throughout the years. My favorite Godzilla comic was by James Stokoe, and it was called Godzilla: The Half-Century War, and it was about this one.
Ooh,
It was
that's a
about
classic.
Yeah, and it was about this one soldier and his relationship fighting with Godzilla, fighting Godzilla for 50 years.
Yeah.
And we can essentially do that. And like in that comic, Koichi has this relationship with this monster that's like affected his life so much, and how that changes over the course of 50 years. And I feel like you never turn the Godzilla of Godzilla -1 into a superhero. He's never going to like people.
Yeah.
You're never going to get along with him. But I think you could get to a point where Godzilla and humanity have to ultimately, after decades of crashing into each other,
Figure this shit out.
just sort of accept the existence of each other. Godzilla knows that they'll do dumb science stuff that will hurt me if I fuck up their cities too bad. But also, they can't do whatever they want. I'm
a force of nature.
I'm gonna be Godzilla
like,
sometimes. And then, like, you could just show Koichi's changing relationship over, and like, basically have his life story. You could take 34 movies, jump around decade, and one more thing you could do is revisit the other classic monsters when they first show. Like, so the first time we met King Ghidorah was in 1960 something in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Yep.
And in the movie set in the 60s, that's when we meet Ghidorah. Go to the 70s one, that's the movie, you know, Koichi's aging in these decades, but like that's the time we meet Mechagodzilla.
Legit reboot the series, reboot the system. And
Sort of, yeah, but like you don't have to make 30-odd films. You
Sure.
can make like
Yeah.
4 and cover 40 years, you know? And I think that would be really cool, just sort of following Godzilla through the decades and his relationship to this one guy who has these complicated feelings about him and how it's affecting his life for like 40, 50 years.
So, I have this theory. whenever I hear something cool from other people, I know it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I think that's amazing. I think repurposing
That's my fan fiction.
the century, but repurposing the Century War that you're talking about, like
I love that comic.
That would be the case, especially with what they just introduced with -1. When I first saw -1, what I thought would really dope is following the daughter,
Akiko, yeah.
Akiko, and how that interrupted her life, how that interrupted her legit just like being of just like, oh my goodness, this monster has like changed everything that I was supposed to do whatever. And following her. So like kind of in the same vein of the Half-Century War, but from her perspective, which would be very interesting because it would be not one of the first, if not the first time of following a female lead.
I mean,
I'm sure it's happened before, for it to be like a long-standing like arc.
I'd take it.
And the next,
once you get to the Heisei era, you will like Miki Sagusa. She's a female character. She's a psychic. Of
course she is.
Yeah, she's a psychic,
but not from Venus.
She has this like kind of working coworker relationship with Godzilla throughout the Heisei era. At first, it's like, oh, her job is to stop Godzilla, and then it's just like, oh, hey, what's up, man? Like, there's a monster, and like, she's just a recurring. She's like a rare recurring character throughout the series, and she's in in 5 movies. And that's 5 movies is a lot for any single human character in these movies.
I think what you pitched for Toho is very anime based.
Is that anime, based? Because I'll take that too. Or you mean based on anime?
I think that has to be in the world of anime where it has to be animated. Only because
I love animation. I mean, shit.
I love it too.
I'll take it.
Depending on how they do it.
This isn't bad news. I'll take this. You get on the phone with Toho?
You saw the Planet Wars, Godzilla Planet. I did not because I was like, I will not.
Yeah, you don't have to.
So there is a way you can do it wrong, but I think if you do it right, that would be one of the better ways to do it, unless you have what you're doing. You're Kevin Feige in the Toho universe.
I'll be the fucking Toho Kevin Feige. They won't take me, but I'll do it.
Jesus. So, legendary Watermelon Godzilla. Optimus Prime.
Jelly Rancher Godzilla, yeah.
Optimus Prime, King Kong. Where are they going? What are they doing?
Okay. So here's my pitch for the next movie after this. So this movie is going to explore the Hollow Earth more. This is a really great figure. Where'd you pick this? Did you pick this up at Atomic City Comics? I saw this one in the window there.
That is actually, I think, Crunchyroll.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Feel free to sponsor as Crunchyroll.
Is that how you get sponsors?
I don't know. I hope so.
we were talking before we started recording. He was like, "Oh yeah, I have this."
I thought it was 2014. You said it's 2016.
This is from Godzilla King of the Monsters. And I'll tell you how I can tell. It's his dorsal plates. In 2014, it was a semi-controversial in as much as like these dumb little details can be controversial to nerds like me. Part of the design that he had these sort of jagged, short, broken glass kind of dorsal plates. And these that sort of fan out in a more flower-like way are a lot more like what you would see. Yeah, and also more like traditional, like what you would see in the older movies. And it was something, that they added when Michael Dougherty did King of the Monsters. King of the Monsters was much more like a throwback movie than the 2014 film.
And this will go into how you feel where they're going with the movies.
Yes.
Pero like, with you seeing this, and this is being the 19, whatever.
Yeah. King of the Monsters, yeah.
Now we see the trailer with the new Godzilla, and it's very crystallized. Pero like, say more.
So, I think that if you look at every film that's been in the MonsterVerse so far, It's pretty clear that they're going in a direction. Like, they've experimented with different tones. I think with the success of the first Godzilla vs. Kong, they found one that seemed to work with audiences, and that is silly sci-fi Showa era adventure. It doesn't take itself too seriously. You got your action figures slapping together, big colorful monsters doing crazy shit, and it seems to work for them. And I think the future is more of that. And so what I think they could do in this movie, it looks like they're going to explore the Hollow Earth more. We're going to meet more creatures that fall under the domain of either Godzilla up on the surface or Kong down below. I think Kong's going to kind of be like Godzilla's lieutenant a little bit. Godzilla proved he's the alpha. Yeah, Godzilla proved he's the alpha, but he can't be everywhere at once. And if Kong wants to run shit down in the Hollow Earth, Godzilla's fine with that. It's not like Kong's going to like rebel against him. He knows what's going to happen if he does. So Godzilla's cool with Kong running shit down in the Hollow Earth. We meet more monsters down there. This is going to be how Kong gets in charge. He's going to fight Scar King, win by the end, and you'll have King Kong, finally. And so that'll be this film. After that, I think Mechagodzilla destroying Hong Kong changed things. I think every country in the world saw, like, okay, well, there's giant monsters now, right? Giant monsters show up. Now we feel helpless. It's like the nuclear arms race, but back to zero. And the one who has all of the weapons is giant monsters. This one big robot beat them up pretty good, though. So, like, maybe that's the future, right? Is mechas. Mechagodzilla, okay, it had a problem because...
Pacific Rim, it's your shot.
Kind of. And kind of like that, different countries are going to have their different approaches to it, right? Like, all right, maybe in China they make one with, like, that can sort of split apart into different vehicles, and it's called Mogira, and has a drill on its face. In, like, America, they could go like, well, we like Kong. He's kind of like our guy. We made a Mechani-Kong, you know? And so they have, like, it's like Mechagodzilla, but Kong. And then, like, in Japan, they could, like, all right, well, we need our mecha. And, like, you know, they make it really, like, sort of anime-styled with this big, like, metal grin, and they call it Jeto Jaguar. You know? Are you happy?
A little bit.
Giant robot arms race. Because it looked like it worked. Mechagodzilla almost killed Godzilla. The world sees this, and it's like, all right, that almost worked. Every country in the world starts scrambling to make their own giant robots. One country even takes a titan, a kaiju that already exists. There's a living, organic...
And goes Monarch.
Like, and they're like, we'll do something different. We're not going to make a giant robot. We'll take this one and make it a cyborg.
Oh, that's definitely Monarch.
Yeah.
That is Monarch.
And that's where you get Gigan from. And so you have this thing where, like, you have all these countries in the world making these giant robots. And King Ghidorah, whose brain is what took over and piloted Mechagodzilla and Godzilla vs. Kong. At the end of that movie, they never got rid of the Ghidorah skull.
They never
shut it off. Yeah, they shut it off.
they just turned it off, but they never, like, really...
I love the idea of Ghidorah as this cockroach-like spite-fueled ghost that refuses to die out of sheer hater energy. And so basically Ghidorah gets plugged back in one last time and turns all of the robots in the world against humanity. Like, humanity basically in their scramble to be better than the kaiju, to have their own giant robot, to not only compete with the Titans, but compete with each other. Like, let's face it, there's ego involved here. They all scramble and just make this assembly line of an army for Ghidorah. And now the only thing that can save the world is these monsters that everyone was so afraid of. These monsters that we build all these weapons to fight, all of a sudden, they're what we need the whole time. And so you have a war of these kaiju led by Godzilla and Kong.
All monsters attack.
Destroy all monsters.
Destroy all monsters.
Use that title. Use that. It's recognizability.
You know what?
So good.
That's cheesy. That's just cheesy enough to possibly work.
It'd be so good. It'd be really cool.
I don't know if it'll be good.
Legendary, call me, please.
I don't know if it'll be good, but it
would be amazing. Come on.
You'll get the seats. You'll get the butts in the seats.
It'd be like your Avengers Endgame of this universe. Like.
Yes, very much so. Well, This has been Afro Izakaya, first episode.
This is the first episode. You starting with this?
This is it.
This is the deep end. You just threw them right in.
Hey, we'll make a lot of clips. So, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and all the good things that you do on Instagram and YouTube and all the stuffs. And we'll catch you on the next one. Deuces.